Welcome to the SVG-TV News for Monday, February 22nd. My name is Khalil Cato with the details. A number of fifth form students across SVG returned to their classrooms today to complete their school-based assessments. On January 15th, the Ministry of Education and National Reconciliation announced that in light of the rise in COVID-19 cases and on the expert advice by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, school would remain closed until further notice. In a telephone interview with SVG-TV News, Minister of Education Curtis King said the SBAs involve hands-on or practical work which the students would be better able to complete in a physical classroom setting.
Some schools, mainly the secondary schools, they open their doors to fifth form students. Those fifth form students who are completing their SBAs, in particularly the subjects with the practical component, like the TVET program, the science subjects that required, if you like, hands-on approach, face-to-face interaction. Those students are being allowed to return to school to complete their SBA.
Minister King said that the reopening of schools to accommodate these students will be under strict COVID-19 protocols as guided by the Health Ministry. Minister King said during the school hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., students would not be allowed to leave their school compound. Hence, they're advised to take along their snacks or lunch.
And they're being sanitized daily. We have a situation where no more than 10 persons will be engaged in teaching and learning at any given time. Transportation has been organized through the Ministry of Transport and Works. We have identified pick-up points for the students. The hours of classes will range from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And obviously, once students are on the compound, they are not really allowed to leave these compounds. They will be required to take their snack and lunch to the compound so that they won't have any need to leave. Cleaners will be available to clean at intervals during the day. And where the uniforms are concerned, basically that has been relaxed. Students are allowed to wear their school t-shirt and jeans, as the same as it was during the period for dengue.
Transportation arrangements have been put in place to get the students to and from school. However, King said there were some hiccups this morning and some students were unable to be picked up. He said they have since sorted the matter out and will be doing all they can to ensure the safety of the students and teachers who will be back in the classroom.
Yes, already I've had some feedback from a couple schools indicating that their students traveling from certain locations were not picked up this morning and had to make alternative arrangements. We are working on that to ensure that that is corrected immediately. We once again call on all stakeholders, teachers, the principals, the parents, the students, and other significant stakeholders to let us all work together in these difficult times so that we could provide the opportunities for our students so that they could put themselves in a better position to perform at the upcoming external examinations.
As for the full reopening of schools, Minister King said they are monitoring the situation before making a concrete decision. As skepticism surrounding the COVID-19 vaccines continues to affect the rate at which Vincentians are registering to take their jab, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves highlighted the measures that are used when procuring vaccines for the island. Speaking on radio on Sunday, PM Gonsalves said neither cost, efficacy, nor accessibility plays a factor in the decision-making process. Rather, the science and the vaccine's safety are the measures under which his government is operating to procure the best-suited vaccines.
medical science in relation to the vaccines which are available and safe. For instance, I received a report from persons in the medical, in the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who are charged medically with this matter. And they're the ones who made the determination to provide the emergency authorization under the Public Health Act as amended. And within that emergency declaration, we have given emergency authorization.
Dr. Gonzalez said the discussions have been ongoing with various groups, including different unions and churches, to bolster support for persons to take the available COVID-19 vaccines.
Last week, Sunday, on the vaccine, I called Burns, who heads the National Labour Congress, for them to get a meeting going to the unions, to get the unions to talk among themselves about encouraging the workers to have the vaccine. We had a meeting last week with the churches. No, not last week, the week before. And I think a meeting is scheduled for the churches to discuss the issue of vaccine with the CMO and her team. And Thursday night, there was a 2-hour-plus discussion. Camilo was the lead discussant. I attended to show solidarity with the chamber. And these important consultations have to continue.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines is expected to receive 40,000 AstraZeneca vaccines from the government of India, with another 11,000 under the COVAX facility in the coming weeks. The 6 vaccines, which the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment has granted emergency clearance for, are Janssen, Moderna, Pfizer, Covishield, AstraZeneca India, Oxford AstraZeneca, and Russia's Sputnik V. Prime Minister Gonzalez said he is also looking to purchase vaccines from Cuba once their clinical trials are complete and approval is granted. 11 new COVID-19 cases were recorded in SVG over the weekend. 4 of these cases were recorded on Friday, 5 on Saturday, and 2 yesterday. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, said 32 persons were cleared, bringing the total number of recoveries to 835. 664 cases remain active, and 6 persons with COVID-19 have died. 1,505 cases of the virus have been reported in St. Vincent and the Grenadines since March 2020. The public is reminded to wear a facial covering, physically distance, sanitize hands, and get vaccinated to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Since the pandemic started almost a year ago, there were many persons who encountered mental issues which counselors have had to deal with. So says Counselor Elika Matthews, who was a panelist on SVG-TV's Viewpoint program last evening. Matthews, who is on the COVID-19 task force offering psychological support to persons, said that intervention was needed on many occasions for persons who became depressed, and some were even suicidal for various reasons.
Persons were quite depressed because it's a big change. They're now at home. Some persons would have lost their job. They don't know, when am I going to work again? They don't know, if I catch COVID, how is that going to affect me and my employment? Because I might be working part-time, or I might be paid by the hour. How is that going to affect me? So we found that people were getting depressed, people were getting anxious, and especially when it came to staying at home. And there are some severe cases where we would have had persons who had suicidal ideation.
Matthews said that persons also affected were those in isolation and quarantine, while there were some who just wanted to know more COVID-19 information. Meanwhile, social worker with the Ministry of Health, Roselle Solomon, said that they work with health professionals who make recommendations for patients who may need counseling or psychological support.
There are different ways, and medical team or just individual nurses or doctors would call and say, I have this person who just came to this clinic, I think they may need some help, etc. So the pathway isn't linear, as in it's going one way, it comes from different directions. And so we work with that because we have to understand, we have to be flexible, because we want to make sure we capture as many people as possible. And also we are a flexible team. That's one thing I can say. We move when we need to move. We do what we need to do. So that's part of our referral process. in that comes through the task force, from on the field, through the districts, from the COVID-19 hotline. People try to contact directly, or even they call the mental health center to get some assistance as well.
Councillor Matthews urged persons not to be afraid to seek help if you're experiencing mental issues. She outlined some of the signs to take note of and said persons feeling such a way should call the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center or the COVID-19 Task Force.
And this is what we want people to understand. When you start feeling this way, where you're sad, where you're depressed, where you're anxious, where you are fearful, and it comes to a place where it's interfering with your ability to function on a day-to-day, with your ability to interact with your family members, with your ability to do anything, that is the place where you say, okay, I might need some intervention, and that is when I can reach out to persons, to members on the psychosocial team. And there are going to be days when the medical team interacts with somebody and they might need that additional care, but they don't bring it up. What I want to encourage persons, if you feel like you need that psychosocial support, if the medical team is the person there with you, you can tell them at that point and they will refer back to us.
Nurses, doctors, and other frontline workers have also been affected by the pandemic. Ms. Solomon said these persons have been overwhelmed, which could be a contributing factor for them not readily taking the COVID-19 vaccine.
My thing with healthcare workers and the nurses and doctors, that they're so overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed even before COVID. So now with COVID, they're overwhelmed and they're taxed. And I want people to understand that they have feelings and they have fears just as we have fears about COVID-19. And I think they have more fears because they are so intimately involved with suffering and people feeling sad and frustrated that they know all too well about the effects of COVID. So when we hear about healthcare workers not taking the vaccine, etc., just breathe a little, because they are humans. They have their own concerns, their own fears, and they need time to get through that. And we are all here for them. The Ministry of Health is here for them, their co-workers, their friends, family, the nation. We are here for our healthcare workers because it's because of them that we're able to definitely, as we say, navigate and travel and move through this pandemic.
Measurements of the new dome at La Soufrière have not yet been updated due to bad weather conditions over the past week. So says lead scientist monitoring the volcano, Dr. Thomas Christopher. Dr. Christopher, however, said that the new lava dome continues to grow laterally and gave an estimated scale of the dome, which he said is almost the length of the strip at the decommissioned E.T. Joshua Airport.
It would have been around 600 meters, which was probably half the length of the E.T. Joshua airstrip. I'm guessing by now it would have probably grown another 100 or 200 meters. So it's almost the full length of that airstrip in terms of the long axis, but that is not south. Because remember, as we said, because of the crater wall and the old dome, it's restricted as to how far it can grow in the east-west direction. But in the east-west direction, which is the width of it, it's probably around 200 meters, which is probably around 1/5 of the length of that strip. So if you were to cut that strip in 5 equal pieces, it's probably around one of those pieces. The height of it is probably, if you cut the airport strip in 10 pieces, that's the height of it. So just for scale, that's the sort of dimensions it is. It's shaped like a peanut. It's narrowing at the middle, and it's widening at the edges in the north-south because there's more space for it to spread.
On the last visit to the summit, Dr. Christopher said the climb was a difficult one due to high concentration of gases in the atmosphere, especially from the leeward end. He said a camera monitoring the dome was retrieved and was damaged from the acidity of gases, which could get hazardous.
The rate at which it's growing vertically has slowed, but it's still growing vertically. So, one of the things we noticed going up there on Thursday, because that's the only part I would have taken since this eruption has started and I got here. I've only been using the leeward trail. So one of the things we noticed
going up there on Thursday is that we were under attack by the gas. There was definitely a lot more gas going up the trail, and when we cleared the tree line going up onto the ridge just before you get to the summit, there was a lot of hydrogen chloride. You know, we were coughing, and it was quite uncomfortable for us going up there. It was burning our eyes as well. So there could be two reasons for that. One reason could be that there's a bit more gas coming out, or the dome is closer, or just the wind issue. Well, 3 reasons actually. So I think as the dome gets bigger, we're going to get a lot more gas coming through that area, and it's going to be a bit more hazardous for us to use that trail.
Dr. Christopher said that while there is no immediate danger due to what is happening inside the crater, persons still need to be on the alert, but not to panic.
The people who are tasked with looking at this volcano, monitoring it, and keeping an eye on it, I mean, our guard has not dropped. We're still doing our jobs. But, you know, as long as people have their grab bag, I think is a good word for it, with their documents and stuff in one place, and they can get to that and leave if they need to. I think that's all they need to worry about. They don't need to be concerned about what the volcano is doing day to day. I mean, they listen to the updates from NEMO and the radio stations, and all should be fine, because we should be able to tell them if there's an issue with the volcano. If we see something changing, we will let them know. You know, so having the eruption in the back of your minds is not the way to go forward. But totally ignore it. The eruption is not the way to go forward either. So I'm saying just don't think about it every minute, but just keep up to date as to what's going on.
Minister with responsibility for airports, Julian Francis, said the issues raised by the Public Service Union on behalf of the workers at the Argyle International Airport will not be dismissed. Speaking on radio on Sunday, Francis said he received a correspondence on Friday, and while it is too early to publicly speak on the issues raised, he, along with the board of the AIA, will be looking into the matter.
The PSU represent the workers at the Argyle International Airport. Yes, that there are some matters to be addressed out there, and there have been correspondence going back between the PSU and the management of AIA. As to the specifics, I don't wish to discuss that on public radio, because I had last week, I don't think I have it here, just 2 days ago, I got a letter directly addressed to me directly as minister with responsibility for AIA, and I believe I got it on Friday. So I'm going to have a specific briefing. I know that the AIA board has it on their agenda for discussion for the board meeting, I believe Tuesday.
Minister Francis said that government welcomes the PSU's representation of workers, noting that he represents a Labour government.
You know, the Labour government, you know, the Unity Labour Party is a Labour government, and we encourage trade unions, workers to join their trade unions. There will be disputes from time to time, and it is the Public Service Union right to represent all or part of the staff that would bring complaint to them on matters. I know that there are some areas, I've seen the subject matters that are in dispute or need to be reviewed or discussed. Naturally, AIA is 4 years old, was just 4 years old, well, since operation. And when you start a new business like that, there will have to be reviews. And I have no doubt that some of these matters will fall into the review of the board and the government.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves will address a virtual meeting of the United Nations Security Council tomorrow. The meeting will be held under the theme addressing climate-related risks and climate-related risks to international peace and security. The meeting will be chaired by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and is set to begin at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Prime Minister Gonsalves is scheduled to make his address between 10 and 10:45 local time. The objective of the meeting is to discuss the role of the Security Council member states and the UN in addressing future threats to international peace and security posed by climate change, including through sustained and systematic consideration of related conflict risk, peace-building approaches, and support for adaptation and resilience in climate-vulnerable settings. The Prime Minister is also expected to deliver a guest lecture tomorrow evening at the University of Guyana on the topic Globalization, Regional and International Perspectives. The lecture, which will be delivered virtually, will introduce the concept of globalization and give an exploration of the topic by identifying its benefits, challenges, and impact on communities. The organizers say attendees will consider collectively and individually how globalization might be addressed in the Caribbean region and in their respective communities. Presentations will also be made by Professor Edward Green, Chancellor at the University of Guyana, and Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin, Vice Chancellor at the University of Guyana. The lecture will be held via Zoom from 6 tomorrow evening.